So today in this session, we are going to talk about Azure storage accounts. So what is the storage account? So in Azure, like for example, in AWS, those are already completed AWS. In AWS, we see different storage services like EBS, Elastic Block Storage, Simple Storage Service, S3, right? And same way here also we can see all those services, but here we have we need to create one storage account, and inside that storage account we can able to see multiple storage services, same like EBS and S3. Here also we can see multiple storage services. So those storage services are we call it as an blob storage, and Azure file, and queues, tables. So these are the different services we can able to see inside this Azure storage account. So before going and creating this Azure storage account, let's go and discuss some brief about this storage account. So whenever we are going to create a storage account, first of all, we should know we have types of storage accounts. So what are those types of storage account we need to see? So here, when we are trying to create the storage account, at that time it will ask what type of storage account you want to create. So here, if you see types of storage account, we can see standard, general purpose V2, and premium blobs, and premium file shares, and premium page 3 blobs. So these are the different types of storage accounts are available. So whenever you are trying to create the storage account, then you need to select which storage type you want. So for example, you want to access Azure file share, then you cannot able to get that Azure file share in the standard general purpose. So that you can get inside the premium file shares only. So based upon your requirement, for what purpose you are creating the storage account, based on that, you need to create this one. And an Azure storage account contains all of your Azure storage data objects, including blobs, file shares, queues, tables, and disks. So the storage account provides a unique namespace for your Azure storage data that accessible from anywhere. So whenever we are trying to create the storage account, whatever the name we are providing, it should be unique. So if whatever the name which we are providing, if it's already exists, then it is not going to allow you to create. Just like when you create a Gmail account, so if the name which you are providing, if it is already available, it is not going to allow you to create. It will tell already it exists. Same way also, you need to provide a unique name for your storage account, and the data which is inside the storage account, you can able to access across the world through the internet. So with the help of HTTP and HTTPS, means through web URLs, you can able to access the data. And when you try to create the storage, so it will ask for the redundancy, how you want to store the data. We have LRS, ZRS, GRS, and GZRS. We'll discuss those things also, like what are those. When we try to create the storage account, at that time we'll see what are the options we can able to see. So these are all the endpoints. So now let's go and create the storage account over here. Previously, whenever we create a VM, right, while we are creating a VMs, at that time we assign a disk to the VM. So what is the disk? It is like a managed disk. Previously, Azure used to provide unmanaged disk. So what is that unmanaged disk? When we go to the disks option, here we are providing, these are the managed disks. Managed disk means what? Azure is providing these disks, and whenever they are providing these disks to us, we don't see the storage account because they are managing it, and it is not visible for us. So previously, before this, Azure used to ask us to create this from our side, and we need to allocate that. So we need to, at that time, we need to create a storage account, and inside that storage account we need to create disks, and those disks needs to be attached to this VMs. So those are called unmanaged disks, means we are managing it. So managed disk means what? Azure is managing the disks. So these are the disks whatever we are allocating. So we can't see the storage account of these managed disks. So now whenever we want to allocate this, now we no need to create any storage account to create a disk and attach to the VMs, because Azure is providing those disks now. So as I mentioned, so whenever we create this storage, so this is like an as a reference in the Azure. In the AWS we have an EBS storage, and also same way we have S3 storage also is available. So this acts like a S3 also and a EBS, and Azure file is like a NFS file system, network file shares, and queues. This queues, for example, whenever we see any messages over here, right, notifications. So during this notification, it is maintaining some space. These are like queues. Like for example, if I create something, another message will pop up here and it will be in the queue, and it will show that message, and again it will be void. We cannot able to see that this all the activity log. So it needs some space. Okay, so that kind of messaging queue will be available here. Like I am not sure whether you heard about RabbitMQ messaging queue. So it is like in a queue, it expects some space. So for that, you can create a queues over here. And tables is like a NoSQL database. This is like a NoSQL database. So generally, whoever knows about the database, there are two types of database: SQL database and a NoSQL database. So SQL databases means here Oracle, MySQL, MS SQL, Microsoft, and MariaDB, and what else database? Oracle, MySQL, MS SQL, MariaDB. These are like SQL databases, and NoSQL databases are like Cassandra, and some other databases are there, like apart from Cassandra. What else? NoSQL databases. I couldn't able to recollect. Yeah, PostgreSQL also SQL database only. Yeah, correct. DynamoDB. DynamoDB, I think it is in the specifically to the AWS. In general, if you talk, then yeah, MongoDB. These are like NoSQL databases. Again, it depends upon the application data, how it want to store in the background. Based on the database will be decided. So whenever you have an application, for example, if we take Twitter, I think it runs the backend NoSQL databases. So based upon your application, we'll decide backend what kind of database is required. So SQL database means what? Everything in a structured way it will store. For example, there will be rows, columns, will be there, tables. Inside that, records will be maintained each and every. For example, if an employee record needs to be maintained, employee name, employee ID, employee phone number. This way, in a structured way, data is going to be stored in a SQL database. NoSQL database is not going to store in a structured way. Okay, so based upon your application, what kind of data it is creating, how again it is going to be accessed, based on that, the database will be selected in the background. So these are different databases. So here tables means here you can create a kind of NoSQL databases. So majorly this Blob and Azure file, these are like important for the storage accounts. So tomorrow it will be mostly theory part, and tomorrow we'll see practically how we can create and how we can achieve this one. So already this storage account got created. Why? Because when I was accessing this cloud shell at that time, it was expecting to have one storage account so that this cloud shell can be accessible. So at that time this was got created. So let's create a new storage account. So always remember, this is like a inside the storage account we have different services, storage services are available. So majorly this is for storing data and different like services. One is for, we'll discuss like those who don't know about what is a NFS, what is the purpose of NFS, all these things. If you understand, then easily you can able to understand this one. So under which RG you want to store it, and storage account name. So this is the name I'm providing, and I want in the East US. And performance here, determine whether you want to have premium performance for blobs, file shares, or page blobs in your storage account. So recommend for most scenarios general purpose v2. Premium recommend for scenario that require low latency. See, premium means what you are going to get. You are going to get high-end storage. For example, if we talk about IOPS, like we'll have different types of hardwares in the background. So what kind of hardware you are expecting, whether it's a normal hardware or it's an high-end hardware like SSD drives you are expecting, based on that you need to select here. So you want standard or premium means high-end. So you are going to get very good performance. It's like SSD drives with very good IOPS. So you can select a premium account type. Here again you can see file shares, block blobs, and page blobs. When we try to create a blob storage, at that time we'll discuss what is the difference between block blobs and page blobs. And file shares, best for enterprise or high performance applications that need scale. So file shares means you are going to store a lot of files, and that can be accessible across multiple machines. So means like even in our laptop also, if I share something, if you go to the folder, right click, share, then if you give the IP address, then other whoever in the same network, they can also able to share that folder and they can able to access. Likewise, whoever connected to the same network, all of them can able to access if you mentioned everyone over there. So that way they can able to access, and they can also store files inside your share, and they can download the files from the share which we have shared. So same way here also, the shares which we have, whatever the share which we create, the file share, that can be attached to multiple services, for example VMs also, so that it can be accessed. And in case if you select premium and it is asking here locally redundant storage, zone redundant storage, yeah, like EFS, correct. So here redundancy, when you selected premium, then obviously high availability is also very, very important. Then it is asking redundancy. So if you see redundancy, it is asking locally redundant storage, zone redundant storage, and it should ask more. I think in the next tabs, it will show that. So we'll select standard as of now, but okay, here it is showing more. So whenever if you select standard also, it is expecting redundancy. So what is redundancy? The data in your Azure storage account is always replicated to ensure durability and high availability. Choose a replication strategy that matches your durability requirements. So here you need to select how you want to store the data. LRS, GRS, ZRS. So LRS means where it is redundancy. Azure Storage Account redundancy. Okay. So if it is LRS, LRS means what? Locally redundant storage replicates your storage account 3 times with a single data center in the primary region. So what it is going to do? LRS means in the same availability zone, it is going to have a 3 copies. Let's say here, this is a region, and this is one availability zone. This is one availability zone, but it is going to store only in the single availability zone itself. In the single availability zone also, if you have multiple data centers, see availability zone, it seems it's not a dedicated data center. So in the same place, it may have multiple data centers in the availability zone. Basically, this is a region. In one availability zone, there may be chances of small data centers also. So in the same availability zone, it is going to have a copy. Here one copy, here one copy, here one copy. It is going to store in this way. Locally, it is going to store. So here what happens? If the availability zone is having any problem, then you cannot able to get the data. So what it says, within a single data center in the primary region, LRS provides at least 99.9. So whatever the data they are providing, whatever the space they are providing, once we store the data, they are giving high availability like 11.9 means suppose if I store 1 lakh of files, there might be chance of missing one file. Like in Gmail also, in Google Drive, we are storing lot of files. Have you ever seen that file has been missing or data has been deleted? They are giving high availability. Same way here also, the storage which they are providing, if you select your storage account as a locally redundant storage, they are giving this much of high availability, 99.119 durability of objects over a given year. Here objects means nothing but a files, whatever the file type, different file types. So LRS is the lowest cost redundancy because the data is storing in the single data center, means single availability zone. Inside that it is getting stored. So that's why they're not charging much and offers the least durability compared to other options. So LRS protects your data against server rack and drive failures. So in the single data center, when the 3 copies are there, so it is going to have a different racks. So 3 copies in the different servers. So that way you can able to survive. But if availability zone is gone, then you cannot able to get the data. So using LRS allows are unrecall. To mitigate the risk, Microsoft recommends use zone redundant storage. So simply by the name itself, you can understand. Zone redundant means what? Your data is also going to store here also. Different zone. Same region, different zone. Now zone redundant. So if something happens to this complete availability zone also, you have more security like in availability zone also it is there. So if you see the what is that zone redundant, here this is 12 nines. Here it is 11 nines. Now here it is 12 nines. ZRS offers durability for storage resources of at least 99 point this much of percentage. Data is still accessible for both read and write operations even if a zone becomes unavailable. You need to understand it clearly. Still accessible for both read and write. Both read and write means what? Whenever the data is storing here, it is going to synchronize here also to this one. It doesn't mean that this is read only. So it is available for read and write operations. So if zones becomes unavailable, Azure undertakes networking updates such as DNS repointing. These updates may affect your application if you access data before the updates are completed. Means whenever this availability zone is having any problem, we access this through the URLs, HTTP URLs only. Some URL to access the data. So it will point, what is this URL we are accessing? It will point to this storage. So during that time, it will take little bit of downtime. Once it is completed, that then you can able to access it. But data will be available, only access will be lost during that time. So you, for in detailed facilities, you can able to go through this documentation. What else it is going to provide that features, you can able to check that. And zone redundant, if you see availability zone 1, zone 2, zone 3 means copy 1, copy 2, copy 3. So in 3 locations it is available. The following diagram shows how your data is replicated across multiple availability zones in the primary region with the ZRS. In the same region, but in 3 availability zones it is available. So also restricting replication of data. And geo, where is geo? So this is geo redundant. Geo means what? Geographical location, different region completely. So this is primary region, this is secondary region. So zone redundant, geo redundant storage copies your data synchronously 3 times with a single physical location in the primary region using LRS. It then copies your data asynchronously to a single physical location in a secondary region that is hundreds of miles away from the primary region. So GRS offers durability of storage resources at least 16 over a given year. So if write operation is first committed to the primary location and replicated using LRS, the update is then replicated asynchronously to the secondary region when data is returned to the secondary location is also replicated. So clearly it understands. So first it will write to the primary region, and it is using the LRS here because the single availability zone, it is copying everything, and then it is replicating with the geo replication is happening to the secondary data center in a different location. And geo zone redundant means what again? See, geo redundant means what? Here single availability zone, here single availability zone in primary region and secondary region. Geo zone means again in all the availability zones in the primary region, all the availability zones in the secondary region, more highly secured. So this is not required, I think so. And secondary region, it is showing one availability zone, but in the primary region, it is showing 3 availability zones. So this way, how you want to secure your data, and we are not going to decide it. Whoever going to store the data, they will tell us for how long they want the data and how they want the data, how they want the redundancy of the data. They will tell us, and based on that we need to configure it. We are not the deciding factor to create the storage account, whether it's an LRS or a ZRS or a geo redundancy. We cannot decide. Whatever the confirmation we get while creation time in the user story, based on that we need to create it, right? So this is how we need to select. We'll select as of now LRS because for us this is the cheapest one. And next, in the advanced technology like configure secure settings that impact your storage account, require secure transfer for REST API operations. See here, to access this storage, multiple ways are available. Let's say this is the storage access. So in the storage account, like you have multiple services like Blob or maybe Azure file. This you can able to access with the different services. Maybe through web browser you can able to access, and you can able to access Azure File Explorer tool, and you have SDKs and you have APIs, because this is accessible through the internet from your application also. Like in the code level, application code level also, they will write this URL, and they'll mention like blob storage account name or what are the details, and they'll provide the keys over here, and what are the application want to store some data, it will give some storage account names, so that it will go and store the data over here. So through APIs also, API is nothing but it is also one kind of an application. So it is also want to go and store the data inside the storage account. So this storage account will store or accessible from multiple ways. Even you can able to access this through Azure CLI. From Azure CLI also you can able to access in your laptop. If you have Azure CLI, from there also you can able to access this storage accounts. So multiple ways you can able to access. So this is how, if you want to give access, like allow enabling public access on individual containers, if you want to give, then you can able to give. And what is containers here? This is storage account I am creating, Galaxy storage account, and inside this I am going to create a container, and inside this container we can create multiple blob storage here, here. So this way, and here you are going to create objects. Objects is nothing but files. So this is one blob storage, this is one blob storage, and this is one blob storage. Like multiple blob storages you can create, and in this you can create multiple containers also. Again same, like in container you can create multiple blob storages here. So here container will come over here under the storage account. So it is asking allow enabling public access on individual containers also. Yes, enable storage account key access. So key access means what? To access the storage account, anyone from application they want to access, or from my laptop CLI I want to access, or maybe as of now I don't have the tool Azure Storage Explorer tool. That is a Microsoft proprietary tool. If I have the tool in my local laptop, with that tool also I can able to access the storage account. But how? We need to provide credentials. So those credentials you can create keys, key based authentication. So when storage account key access is disabled, any request to the account that are authorized with shared key, including shared access signature, will be denied. If I uncheck this box after creating the storage account, it will provide me the keys, but if whoever will try to access the storage account with that key, it is not going to accept to connect to the storage account. So we need to select it, and including shared access keys, client's application that currently access the storage account using shared key will no longer work. So we need to access it, so that's why we need to enable it. And Azure Active Directory authorization in the Azure portal. Basically, if you don't want this key system, all these things, you want to give based upon the user account name, then Active Directory is mandatory. From Active Directory, what we'll do, I have a user account in my Active. Every employee will have an account in the Active Directory. So to that account, if you apply rules, then you can come and access this storage account. So if you select, then that is the credentials also will accept Azure Active Directory credentials. But as of now, we did not discuss about Active Directory. When these properties enabled, the Azure portal authorities request to blobs, file queues, and tables with it by default. So when we discuss about Azure Directory, at that time we'll understand. TLS version. So minimum TLS version is 1.2. So here, see, whatever the certificate it is using now, portal.azure.com, it is using certificate, right? Some TLS certificate it is using. If you are using old browser, old version of browser, then that old version of browser may not understand your latest TLS certificate, this version, TLS version. So what happens at that time, it cannot able to read that properly and it will not give you proper output of your web pages. So that's why your browser also should be always up to date to take the latest certificates. So that's why you need to select here what kind of version you are using, TLS version supported. So always it's like it's a latest version, TLS version. So that whoever is accessing these Azure storages, for them it will be easily accessible properly. Permitted scope for copy operations. This is under the preview, maybe new feature. Even I am not aware about it. So what it is? Restrict copy operations from source storage accounts that are within the same Azure AD tenant or that have a private link to the same virtual network as the storage account. Restrict copy operations from storage account that are within the same Azure AD tenant. Okay. In the same account, maybe it is going to restrict copying from storage account the same AD from any storage account from storage accounts. Okay, as of now, we'll select this option. This data lake storage is not related to us. Basically, this is for like Azure Data Factory. One more thing is there like data related. So it will comes under that one. We can ignore this one. And access protocols, Blob and endpoints are provisioned by default. Enable SFTP. Hierarchical namespace must be enabled. So anyhow, we are not focusing on data lake. This one. Enable NFS. So to enable NFS version also. NFS means in Linux network file system. So if you want to enable that feature, then you can select this one and then you can enable this network file system concept inside this one. So what is NFS file system in the Linux? Like you create one file system in one machine and you share that to across multiple machines. So different machines. The same share you are going to store. So it is not going to be created in the local, but it acts like a file system. For example, in our laptop, we have C drive, D drive. If you keep pen drive, how it will show? It is going to show like an extra letter, right? G or H. Same way, if some Samba share in Windows, we have a Samba share. If you share that in your, it's a network drive, it is going to show inside your my computer. Same way here, NFS also, it's like in the Linux, in multiple machines, you can able to create it and you can store it. So all the data, whatever you're storing over there, it will come and store here, not in their local. And blob storage, allow cross tenant replication. So this is only these facilities, these features only for specific blob storage only. So allow object replication to copy blobs to destination account on a different Azure Active Directory tenant, not enabling cross tenant replication with limit object. So cross tenant replication means you can copy the data from this blob storage to another different account, different tenant ID. You can able to copy if this feature is enabled. And access tier, the blob storage, are you going to access frequently or infrequently? Hot means frequently access data and day-to-day usage scenarios. Cool means infrequently access data and backup scenarios. Backup means once you take the backup, you don't access it whenever again Very rarely if something got deleted, then only we will access it. So that way you want to select hot or cool, we need to decide it. And Azure files. So this is for Azure files. This setting is for Azure files because we are talking about here Blob, Azure files and queues and tables. These are mostly related to the storage things. So Azure files is enable large file shares. Provides file share support up to a maximum of 100 TB. So large file share storage accounts do not have the ability to convert to geo-redundant storage offerings. So if it is a large files you want to store, like the size hundreds of GBs are going to be stored, then you can select Azure file storage. Next, networking. You can, why this is not enabled, enable public access from all networks. This should enable. Why they did not mention reason also? Because these storage accounts, if you are accessing from internet, then only it is easy to access. So this should be enabled. Enable public access from all networks means even from internet also we can able to access. Second one is enable public access from selected virtual networks means this is internally we can access. Okay, because of that NFS, this got disabled. So I disabled NFS feature to get access to this public access from all the network, because we can able to access from the internet also. From my laptop, I can able to access. Even you can able to access that. Otherwise, second option only from the selected virtual networks means what? Internally, what are the VNets we are creating? From there only we can able to access. Not from our local laptops, we cannot able to access. So that's why I'm enabling public access from all networks. Network routing. Determine how to route your traffic as it travels from the source. It is Azure endpoint. Microsoft network routing is recommended for most customers. So, or internet routing. So you want, whenever we are accessing through internet, backend how it should route, it is asking. Microsoft is having their own dedicated network. So you want in that way, or public network you want to use, it is asking. It is recommending a Microsoft network only. So we'll select Microsoft network routing only by default. Because at one point, uh, whenever this is our laptop and this is internet. So till one point it go through public internet, and then from there it is going to carry Microsoft network. Okay. So to reach the destination, this is storage account. But if you select public internet, then it may use multiple hop counts, and to reach there here, all through the public internet you are going. And there is risky also when you are going through public internet, there is a chance of hacking the data also. Okay. But if you are using Microsoft network, then it will be a bit secure compared to this public network. That's why they're recommending go with the routing preference. If you see, so Microsoft network routing will direct your traffic to enter the Microsoft cloud as quickly as possible from its source. Internet routing will direct your traffic to enter the Microsoft cloud to closer to the Azure endpoint. So that way it is going to be chosen. And next, data protection. Whatever the data we are storing inside the storage accounts, this Blob or Azure file storage. So how you want to secure it? So the first, enable soft delete for Blob, and this option is disabled by default. Enable point in time restore for containers. So this should be enabled, but maybe some of the feature is linked to this feature. That's why this got disabled. If you enable this, So you have an option to restore the data also for point in time restore. And enable soft delete. Soft delete means what? Data is going to be deleted and it can be restored. Okay, means it is going to be deleted to the recycle bin. Soft delete means, and you can recover it even in our laptop also. Whenever we delete, it will go to recycle bin. It will stay for some time, I think there 30 days, I think. After that, it will delete. Same way here also, within 7 days, you can able to collect from there, or else it will delete permanently. Enable soft delete for containers. So here, this is specifically we are talking about this concept, container and blob. So enable soft delete for containers means if you delete containers, then blob also will get deleted. This option is not selected. So enable soft delete for file shares, and this is for another this one, file shares. So soft delete means you will recover file shares that were previously marked for deletion. So it will store in the recycle bin and you can retain within 7 days if you want. Tracking. So manage versions and keep track of changes made to your blob data. Enable versioning for blobs. Use versioning to automatically maintain previous versions of your blob. The same thing is available in, if you remember, those are completed AWS. S3 is also having same concepts. Okay, versioning and this data protection. Okay, whenever it's deleted, we can able to retain them back. Versioning means what? What happens versioning? If I store a file here in the blob, assume that particular file, we are just mentioning it as a version 1.1 version, and same file in your laptop you modified it, you updated some lines, assume it's a code, you updated a few lines and again you uploaded into the same uh, blob, and then assume it got 1.2, and third time again you deleted few lines from your local and again you uploaded it, then it became as a 1.3. So now later on you realize that whatever the changes you have done the third time, you deleted few lines, you don't want to do it, you want to modify it, and you did not do in a single paragraph, like maybe in multiple lines you have deleted some lines, but later on you don't know what you have deleted, then obviously versioning will help you. Like whoever completed DevOps, you might have done a GitHub versioning concept, very very important. So every change will have one version, every update. So if you have versioning enabled, then it will store versions over there, and what it will do, you can go back to this version, you can delete this version because you are not sure whatever you have deleted is correct. So you can remove this version and then you can have this 1.2 version over there. That is the advantage of versioning. So enable versioning. So why it is telling versioning and hierarchical namespace cannot be enabled simultaneously. In previous tab we enabled hierarchical namespace. That's why here it is not enabling. So enable blob change feed, keep track of create, modification and delete changes to blobs in your account. You can select that one also. Encryption, always data will be encrypted. Even for your VMs also, when we create a VM, that VM will also is providing the disks by the Azure itself, the managed disks. That is also data will be encrypted. And same way here also, what are the storage you want, you can encrypt that. Customer managed keys and Microsoft managed keys, with this you can encrypt. So enable support for customer managed keys, blobs and files only, or for all services you want, you can enable this feature and you can encrypt the data if you want. Customer managed keys means we need to manage our own. Microsoft managed means they will provide you the keys. Enable infrastructure encryption. I hope everyone knows what is encryption, right? Non-human readable format, what the data is storing that in a non-human readable format, it will encrypt the data. If someone hacks it also, they cannot able to understand what is the data exactly. Instead of plain text format, it is going to be encrypted. No one can able to understand until unless you are a very genius and you can crack it, then only you can able to read that one. And tags, you can give some tags over here or else not required. Review, and then create. So it is getting created. So yesterday we were talking about that virtual machine scale set, right? I'm not sure whether you guys started practicing or not. So only thing you need to do is, finally, I thought to tell about this at the before starting the class, but I forgot it. So if you go to the virtual machine scale set, individual instances are available. So individual instances is having public IP. You can take the public IP and you can just try to access it. You can able to access it because what we have done yesterday, we created a image from the VM and we use that image to create this virtual machine scale set. But only thing you need to do is for the virtual machine scale set, go to the networking and I allowed this 80 from any here virtual machine scale set, and same I have done to the instances also. For instances also, select here network here 80 allowed for both the machines. So once this is done, then we can able to access it, and after this we need to create the load balancer. So once we create the load balancer we need to attach, like we'll try load balancers, create. I'll try to create quickly. LB01, where we created this one, virtual machine scale set, West US. Okay, West US, standard, public, regional, and front end IP. Add. Oh, I think public IPs are not available. This is the main problem for me. Already 3 public IPs are reserved now. This is for 2 virtual machine scale set, and this is not sure which VM it is occupying 1 public IP. Only 3 IPs it is using. Okay, you guys can try, just create it as I shown you previously in the load balancer concept. In the backend pool, what is this VM test VM1? I'll try to delete one of the public IP. Maybe for this one it is having public IP, I think so. No, it doesn't have public IP. Who is using? I'm not sure to which VM it was associated. multiple times I'm clicking on this, that's why it is showing as a failed, but it is trying to disassociate. It's not an error actually. Delete. So I deleted one of the public IP. It's deleted, right? Still deleted public IP. Okay. So now here create new LB public standard regional Microsoft network. Okay. Gateway none. The value name Galaxy LB. Public IP count. I think application gateway also. I cannot delete application gateway IP. I need to remove everything and then I need to do it. Phew. Okay. So anyhow, as I mentioned, you just try that. It will work. So when you access with the load balancer, you can able to access the backend ports instead of like we tried with virtual machines, right? So now you can try with the virtual machine skill set also that one. And storage account got created. Now we'll go and see storage accounts. And these are the different things are available here for storage accounts. So tomorrow we'll see practically about all the storage account options, creating containers, blob storage, file shares. So whatever is possible, tomorrow we'll see and practice it. And same way here, uh, you have this multiple options, static website. In S3 also you have static website, right? Same way you can create that way. But here only the difference is all together storage services are in one location here. Under the storage account, you have all the storage services. In AWS, it's individual service. S3 is an individual service, and EFS is an individual service. EBS separately we can able to access. But here all together under one shelter, like under the storage account, we can able to see that. So any doubts you can ask me, or else we'll wind up today's session. Tomorrow we'll discuss same thing, storage account. Kiran Babu, I had same issue after setting up VMSS Energy. It got for port 80, and I think as we said that energy will apply to all VM instances. Yeah, energy for virtual machine scale set, you need to apply it. You need to allow port 80. So then only from load balancer you can able to access, or else load balancer will try to access virtual machine scale set. But if it doesn't allow port 80, then it cannot able to access the web page. No, uh, for the first time when you are creating the VM, at that time, if you allow that what are the rules, then it is going to create the same rules for each and every machine. For the first time when we are creating virtual machine scale set, I did not allow that rule actually. So if you allow there, then automatically when you create new machines, it will take that from the configuration, it will assign that NS0 automatically. We should not do anything over there. Mahavir. What is the limit for soft delete? Soft delete limit means I did not get you. So whenever you delete, it will be stored in the recycle bin for 7 days by default. If you want to change, you can change from 7 to 30 days also. Uh, Narayan, you are asking about storage account services or in general any other services like VM or maybe disks or network you are talking about. Mahavir, as per my understanding, do we need to make energy changes before creating image? Before creating image contains only OS data, right? Not the NSG rules. But when you are trying to create a virtual machine skill set, then you need to decide under the networking. When you create at the time, let's say, if I go to the home virtual machine scale set, create here under the networking tab, you create a names NSG and you can attach it here. Which one? Basically, it should show here NSG options over here. NSG you need to attach at the time of creation itself. How to change address space for a VNet? You cannot change existing one, but you can add another name's address space. Multiple address spaces you can add to a VNet. You cannot modify the existing one. Any limitation in the sense storing of files or the size of the storage you are talking about limitation. Storage limitations, yes, we have storage limitations. Tomorrow, practically for each storage limitation, we'll discuss for Blob and Azure file. in which scenarios storage to store the data. Your application want to store some data. So where they are going to store, you can create the storage accounts and they can store the data. Or from your on-premises any data want to migrate it, then you can create here storage inside the blob storage, and you can do the data migration to this one. Or your applications creating huge log files, instead of storing in server, routed them to this storage. Many ways you can able to use the storage accounts. Okay guys, so we'll meet tomorrow. Thank you. Thanks everyone.